Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of the Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those I feel who are the next generation of icons in the weddings and event industry. This is all to provide education and inspiration for any entrepreneur, but especially those of us who are event industry professionals and consumers. And my gosh, are we busy or what? I know we're in the season, but wow, like every single person I'm speaking to is just racing so fast and feeling so overwhelmed and so spread thin. So am I relate. So it's funny, I'll be in my office and certain days when I'm just don't have any appointments, and I realize I have not been outside except to get to the office and to leave the office. And so last Friday, I could barely stop myself, but I took a break and I walked outside and I walked somewhere to get some food. And let me tell you, it totally rejuvenated me. It's like I have a big sign in front of me, go outside, take a break. Anyway, I hope everything is going well with you all this season. I'm excited because I found out recently that I was chosen to speak at the upcoming NACE National Convention in Ohio in July. And the topic I'm going to talk about is leveraging podcasts for your business as a marketing and educational tool. So if you have any interest in that, be sure to come by, say hello. Also going to be interviewing someone live there. And as a matter of fact, this Tuesday, April 30th, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C., where I am going to interview celebrity makeup artist Carl Ray for the DC WIPA chapter, WIPA. Got a lot more coming too in terms of speaking engagements I'll tell you about. So anyway, in terms of last week's episode, let me first mention that it was Edwin McCain. It was a re-release of my interview of Edwin McCain, who had two massive hit songs as a recording artist, I'll Be and I Could Not Ask for More. I know you all have heard of those. And a third song too is really incredible. And all these are used very heavily at weddings. And the interview of Edwin was so cool. I mean, it's different. You know, he's not technically an event professional. It was still an inspiring conversation, I'm telling you, in terms of persistence and just gratitude, expressing gratitude. So I suggest listening. So this week's interview is of Liese Gardner of Liese Gardner Communications. When Liese's not working on marketing campaigns, she connects industry leaders, consults with brands on social media and PR, and writes articles on inspiration for business, design, and life on her popular blog, Fuel, The Passions That Drive Us. In 2016, Liese was named one of the top influential event professionals on Twitter. She was inducted into the Event Hall of Fame in 2015 for her contributions to that industry. And so we talk all about PR and marketing and branding. It is a great conversation. And don't forget to listen to the follow-on episode that comes out in a couple days with each interview, The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host. This week it's going to be Shannon Leahy of Shannon Leahy Events. And she and I are going to talk about Liese's interview and help suss out some of the main topics so that we can help you to raise your own business to the next level. So enjoy my conversation with Liese Gardner. So Liese, it is so good to have you here on the show. I know that we met initially, I'd heard your name, but we met because of you working with Ray Thompson, who I just interviewed, and David Merrill with AO Events, right?
Yes.
And Sean Lowe mentioned you, so welcome to the show.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Yeah. It's wonderful to be here.
So, one thing I wanted to ask right off the bat, rather than me make assumptions, is how do you define marketing?
That is a very interesting question because I just was pondering this with a friend of mine who is a marketing agent or a marketer. We were talking about the art of subtle marketing. And when we looked at the word marketing, we thought, marketing in the dictionary is like an aggregate of promotion, sales, and persuasion for a particular cause. And I don't know, that didn't strike either one of us very loving, because I believe in marketing with heart.
I like that.
And I believe in marketing your passion. So the word marketing, it's funny that you asked that right out of the gate because I've been having some issues with that myself. Then I read someone say marketing is a combination of sociology, psychology, and anthropology. To me, that struck me much closer to the heart as being marketing is essentially human. It's just making a human connection and figuring out the strategies to do that.
Geez, and in today's world, that's like the big, I don't want to say a buzzword. I mean, I think it's the heart of everything, selling, networking, all of it is connection. But I love how you're connecting it to marketing. And so I read on your website, Liese, I think that's where it is, where you said marketing is the engine that drives your company into the marketplace. But I would say from what we just said, but with a connecting way about it.
Right. That is a very kind of generic way to put it. And I think that I would, and I am in the process of redoing my website. So I am in the process of rewriting all of that to reflect more of how I feel about like heart-to-heart marketing, because we're trying to connect now with social media. It's so much different than when we were trying to connect, say, through advertising. So I have a good analogy for that, which would be Ivory Soap and Procter & Gamble. They used to spend tons of money advertising and trying to get to their ideal market, but their market was falling off. And of course, Ivory Soap, I mean, everyone knows it. It's kind of the, gold standard for soap out there. But when I went to a friend's house and I saw some soap on their counter, and it was, like it had oatmeal and it had herbs in it, and it had, you could see through it, and it was beautiful. But I said, so why did you choose this soap over the Procter & Gamble soap? And she's like, well, I love their story. I love the story of how they make this soap. I love what they do with their proceeds. I love how they market it at the farmer's market. I love that I can go talk to them about what they're doing. I know who they are. So right there is the way that marketing has shifted so much from how Mad Men, portrayed marketing and advertising. And so that is where the heart comes in. That's where the passion comes in. And the storytelling as well comes in. So we're all telling our stories now.
Then what is, when I also hear the phrase, PR, public relations, how would you define that relative to marketing? A subset of or whatever?
It's all part of the same collective. So I don't see it all as being one or the other. I will say for the layperson, it is easiest for me to describe myself as marketing and PR. Now it's gone into more marketing and brand strategy, which people do understand brand strategy more now. I think that's definitely, seeping into the cosmic collectiveness. But PR is kind of what we're all doing all the time anyway. It's just which is reaching out and having some sort of a connection with your audience. So the traditional PR is reaching out to media, telling them a story, and having them come out and do an article. That would be like totally traditional. But now that we have our own social media and that we are our own publishers, each one of us with social media now is our own media outlet. We have our own audience that we're going to. So I see PR now as being part of that. So say I would come back and I would tell my audience about what happened here and about the Wedding Biz podcast. So in a way, you've done your PR by just talking to me, and then it gets out to another audience. So it's sort of a flip the switch on it, but I feel that so many things now we've flipped a switch on because of social media. It's really changed everything. Well,
and I know, you were talking about going to this massive social media conference where you got a lot of information about where it's going. I want to come back to that. For a minute, I want to back up, though, and find out in terms of the start of your own career, how you got into this, what informs you about it. I know that you began in the events industry as the editor of Special Events magazine, right? And this is, from what I know, like way back when the event industry was just becoming an industry. Isn't that right? Like, why did you choose that, and what draws you to stay with it?
Well, that's a very long and winding road, an interesting road. I had been working actually in film as a PA on The Right Stuff, actually. I got back into Los Angeles and I answered an ad at Miramar Publishing that they needed someone to do, not front of house, but receptionist. And I had done that on the film. So I'm like, well, I need something to get me through, my next phase. I'm not sure where I'm going right now from film. I had been a journalism major as well at that point.
Where did you go?
At that point, it was just an undergrad. So what happened then was I had dropped out of college to go to work on film and see where that took me. And then I came back to Miramar Publishing. I love film, visual storytelling as much as I love print and just written stories. So started working there, And an editor took me under her wing, and she said, do some of these press releases for us, start to work on some articles, and I just loved it. So I went to the publishers, and I'm like, I would like to be an editor. And they're like, you need to go back to school. So they gently nudged me back to college, and I went to Cal State Northridge, and I got my journalism degree. I loved it, and I think taking the 2 years off was important because it brought me back to college where I could then see the bigger picture and go, like, I'm not just here taking classes. I'm here to actually have a vocation. So then when I got out, they hired me, and Special Events Magazine had just started. In 1983, they had just had their first special event in San Diego, I think for maybe an audience of 200 people. And that same year, though, when I started, 1984, was the Summer Olympics Los Angeles. And that really started a lot of companies here, one of them being Images by Lighting, who started around there that time too. And it started to bring the industry together. And then because Special Events Magazine was doing the special event, people started to, as they do, congregate, group, and ISIS, which is now ILEA, started to talk to the publishers, hey, we need a group, we need an organization that we can talk to each other, and that's kind of where that started. And from then it just sort of kept growing and morphing.
But you've stayed in this lane of events. Why events?
Well, it's a creative field, and I love the people. I mean, I love my clients. It's like ridiculous. I love them. So I love the people that I've met through this. They're friends. They're creative people. They're great chefs. They're great lighting designers, event designers, interior designers. Everyone in this industry is so interesting. They come in here through such interesting arteries, like some people were like, I was on my way to be a doctor and now I'm doing an event design. So when I was doing these articles on them and learning about business and learning about them, I'm like, these people are just amazing, and they're always able to pivot and do something interesting and find whatever is new.
Boy, that's a key. Boy, talk about pivot. It's the only way to survive in this industry.
Pivoting, yes, to be flexible.
Yeah. So in terms of while you were there as editor of Special Events Magazine, what did you learn there that carries forward with you?
Well, I always say I learned almost everything about business, about what to do and what not to do from talking to a lot of people. I would go into their business. I would sometimes embed myself for a couple days, writing a story on them. So I would learn everything about their business that they wanted to tell me, of course. They're going to paint a good picture. But then I saw a lot of them go out of business, and I learned from that. Why did they go out of business? And I could kind of tell what was happening with what they're doing with their business, what was wrong or not. And to be honest, it all comes down to personalities, who we are as people. And that is why, and if you don't mind jumping forward a bit, that's why I coined brand therapy for what I do for marketing, because brands are people. And when I get into a business and people have issues that they carry over into their businesses. And sometimes their businesses have issues, like say someone who started 2 years ago and then started a whole program of something, and now they've left, but now the owners are left with this program that person had started. It's almost like pruning a bush. You've got to take off the stuff that's dead and gone, but we forget as businesses to do that because it's hard, or it takes time, or we're busy. So again, this is my form of brand therapy, literally getting into and being a part of my clients as their marketing team, looking for those dead branches.
Well, and when you talked about personality, I'm just curious for a moment, when you talked about it, that seems to be a common thread where people will have trouble with their business. What aspect of their personality, causes that to happen?
It could be anything, again, like what I've talked about in my own work is forgetting to take that next step. Getting to that precipice, and you're ready, and then you don't take it.
Like what, for example?
Well, I guess for myself, because I'm only going to speak about myself, my client, I don't want to talk about clients or anything, but for myself, it would be getting to that precipice of doing more workshops or putting on a summit on something, or doing a retreat, or starting a podcast, for instance. What are these things that are holding me back from doing those things? So sometimes all companies will have that. What is holding me back from writing a book about my company, or going forward with more video about my company or reaching out to my client in a new way. I mean, there's so many different things. So a lot of it comes down to ego, both big and small. So it's like insecurity, but also ego doesn't want to be hurt. We don't want to be hurt. And yet, so we're fragile and we have to be generous with ourselves and say, look, I know I didn't start my podcast that I wanted to start, but it's okay. I'm going to start it now, So that's kind of what I feel like I'm there for my clients. I feel like I'm like the Fraser Crane, like, I'm listening. I'm listening. Tell me what your problems are.
But also you talked earlier about in the event industry, it's all creatives, right? And there's a certain personality, I don't want to say we're all fragile, but it is a certain type of character issues that maybe we have being in this sensitive kind of a field, right? It's this constant self-battle.
Totally. And you know what? People get into business because they have a passion, but passion isn't enough.
Right.
You need endurance. I think endurance, more than anything, the grit to go on. I mean, I love that word grit, and I don't think we use that enough. I don't think we teach that enough. Someone just gritting their teeth and saying, I'm just going to do it because I want to. I'm going to get to it. However, you really have to be careful and look at it and go but is it just passion? Is it passion that's sustainable? I love throwing ceramics or I love cooking, but is that a sustainable business for me? Is it
just in of itself? Right. Yeah.
So a lot of people go find your bliss, find your passion, but find your passion, find your bliss that is sustainable business that then you can actually grow into and then branch off of in different ways. But also the thing about creatives is they get into it because they've got a really great talent and yet they're not business people. So a lot of times if people start working with me too early on, actually, I will not take a client too early on. I feel like their money should be spent on putting the foundations in place for their business. And a website is one of those, even though people are going away from websites now. I disagree with that.
Wait, what do you mean they're going away from websites?
A lot of the younger business owners will start with just an Instagram account and Google Drive.
Wow. A Google Drive?
Google Drive is how they send out their photos or whatever. And you know what? There's certainly a place for that. I don't discount any way that people are getting business done. But I do feel that there are still some foundations of business, like a website. And it doesn't have to be a large one.
It's a calling card, essentially.
So their Instagram portfolio can be that too. But then some people aren't managing their Instagram portfolios if it's a portfolio. They're managing like it's a place to put their news releases. I see a lot of people putting their where you would normally put a press release out. They put it on their Instagram. So hey, we got this award, we got that award. So going back to that whole circular thing of heart, do your readers really, it's nice that you got a news, got that, but how can you relate it to your reader then more? Or are you
Well, and give them something, right? Like some kind of education, or I like to say inspiration, something they can take with them. That's interesting. I mean, I'm having that own, I just brought someone on to help me with social media because there's certain ways I want to connect with my audience. I just don't know how as far as the tool. But you talked about using Instagram effectively. So how would you do that more effectively if you're able to I know this could be a 2-day seminar, but generally speaking.
Instagram is a complete.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you could go on. And I do. Believe me, I run down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I love it. And it's Instagram, people discount all of this social media, almost right out of the gate. And I don't know why they do that. And again, maybe fear. Maybe they just don't want to even deal with new stuff. That's definitely, I see it generationally of people not wanting to deal with new things.
I can relate to that. Sure. That's kind of a struggle
tiring,
I have
right?
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you tired. You're like, oh my God, I just figured out Instagram stories.
And then, so how would you, maybe philosophically speaking, how do you generally use Instagram in an effective way?
Okay, so how you would do it is you would really, going back to being your own editor, you set out your editorial calendar. You figure out you've got 7 days of the week to fill in for your Instagram. What is it you're doing that week? What do you want to say that week? What audience do you want to reach? You kind of figure out for your business maybe 3 to 5 different, I call them buckets, where you can then go my business is this, this, and this. And this week I want to touch on those 3 things of what my business is. So each week I'm going to touch on that. So if I do chairs, tables, and linens, I'm going to touch on chairs one day, linens one day, tables one day in a different way. Now, that could just simply mean creating a tablescape in your showroom that then you show off 3 different ways so that you amortize your content. So I feel like there's like a roadmap for content. So you start with your big piece of content and then you start to parcel it out to all of your different social media platforms, your Facebook stories, your Instagram stories, your emails. It is a full-time job. You know, as you've seen, I'm sure these people that have online courses and stuff, they're full-time jobs. But for your business, I would say, you know, be happy with getting something out 3 times a week. Always make your photos beautiful. Don't put up anything on Instagram that isn't beautiful or well thought out. But if you want to put your rough stuff up and your of the moment stuff up, that's where Instagram stories is. And people love Instagram stories. They are growing 15 times faster than your feed. So people will like and engage on those 15 times more right now. And sometimes they're just staying all up in the stories and never dropping down into your feed or your grid, as we'd call it.
I like what you said, too, at the beginning of this, that really approaching it more strategically, right? As opposed to, I mean, that's really getting me to think differently. You know, I have an overall kind of strategy, but to think of it that way is really helpful. What about Facebook? You know, and I know, you know, you were saying earlier that after going to social media world, you were learning a lot. And I want to get to this eventually where you see all of social media going. But what about Facebook? I mean, it seems to be in a real period of flux right now.
Yeah, I think this wonderful Facebook expert, Marie Smith, said it best. She goes, it's like the children's book, Who Hid My Cheese? You know, so we used to be able to find our cheese and make ourselves really happy and go like, yum, yum, yum. I love just putting out these posts and people are loving it and they're gobbling it up. And then all of a sudden, Facebook decided for brands, and this is what I'm talking about, brands, your business pages. Social is different, but brands are now finding that Facebook is, I guess, but, you know, kind of closing the funnel. It has become a closed platform. It used to always be open platform. It is now getting closed, whereas you have to pay for everything. So they're closing it down for brands. But as Marie Smith says, there's still cheese hidden, and they tell you where the cheese is. I mean, Zuckerberg actually said, I am going to put more into live video, obviously the Facebook video. I'm going to put more into people who are creating things that engage and connect and create conversations. We want smaller groups that are connected together, that talk to one another. So there would be your Facebook groups. And he wants to go more into making Facebook more of a television station. He already has Facebook Watch. And I don't know if everybody knows, but, you know, Instagram and Facebook are owned by Zuckerberg. So a lot of people don't know. And WhatsApp as well. So on the big scale, which doesn't really matter to you and me, Facebook would like to become WeChat, which is China's app, it is all inclusive. You can order your food from it. You can make your doctor's appointment. You can pay bills. You can, you know, call your
That's brilliant.
Uber.
Keep you there.
Everything.
Yeah.
So Facebook will start bundling its family, which is WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook Watch, and Messenger is going to play a big role. We're going to be working more with Messenger.
How so? I don't know if I follow that.
Well, people are using it for marketing already. You can send out like marketing messages through Messenger to your entire Facebook.
Yeah, some people are doing that now.
Some people are. Yeah,
but to me, it seems annoying right now.
It's very annoying.
Yeah. You know, because I expect a one-on-one conversation and I'm getting this stuff.
I think the hardest thing is I can't remember where someone has sent me something. I'm like, oh God, was that a DM? Was it a text? Was it a
hard
messenger?
To keep this up.
What was it?
Yeah.
But that's such a big picture that I don't think that's not going to really relate to us. But how it relates to us is on the smaller level to listen to what Facebook is saying. They tell us what they want us to do. Big brother. But so it would be creating those smaller groups, creating your tribe, as it is, big marketing term, tribes, and talking to them directly and dealing with if you are a marketer on there, if you are a brand, dealing with what to solve their pain, whatever their pain points are. You know, if your tribe is weddings, you want to tell them, I know how to make your life easier as you are planning your wedding. Here's how. You know, so you have a Facebook group for your wedding clients that then can come on and talk about what their issues are. I think everyone, for as connected as we are, I feel everyone's kind of unconnected and they just want to feel more connected.
And also you're talking about niching it down more, right? It's all about becoming more all about niche.
Yes. And showing up more. Get your face on there. Don't be afraid. Everyone's like, oh God, I need to get a facelift before I go on. It doesn't matter. Gary Vaynerchuk says this all the time.
Yeah.
The man looks tired and exhausted, and yet he gets his face on there.
But then, you know what? It's real. It's interesting.
It's real.
When I look at it, I'm not huge in this. I'm trying to embrace it more, look at it more. But it is interesting. I feel like I'm starting to see less, let's call it curated self photos, right? And I guess people can relate more and then feel a connection, therefore.
Yes. And it doesn't matter if you've got bunny ears on or not. Okay.
I want to take a moment to say that if you've listened to my first interviews of Lynn Easton, Tara Gerard, and Colin Cowie, then you would have heard them talking about the value of hiring a PR company and even early in the process. Well, there's an award-winning publicity company that actually focuses on the wedding and events industry, and I'm talking about OFD Consulting. OFD Consulting has placed clients in numerous popular online and print publications, including the New York Times, Martha Stewart Weddings, Style Me Pretty, and many others. And their client portfolio ranges from top planners and venues to respected national brands and industry thought leaders. Go to ofdconsulting.com to learn more. Again, that's ofdconsulting.com. Yeah, I want to come back to just earlier what this seems to center. We were talking about brand therapy. I love that phrase. I want to come back to that. I think that's wonderful. So, and there's something I read about 6 marketing pillars with the brand therapy, which would also help me educate me in general about branding and marketing, all of that. Can you tell me about that?
Okay, let me see. I knew you'd ask, and I'm like, oh gosh, I've got to remember them. Because, on any given day, I might think there's a 7th or an 8th out there too.
Always evolving.
Always. So where we started from, let's see, in my group, we start first of growth and where you want to grow. What areas do you want to grow into? So I guess obviously that's the first pillar of any kind of marketing is what are your objectives? Mm-hmm. So the first one is talking about your objectives, then finding the way to them. Mm-hmm. And so then the next one, we didn't go, and this was my beta group. So it was interesting because I thought, well, we can't get into social media yet until we know who their ideal client is. So we went first from growth, what they want, then second to what our ideal client wants.
Mm-hmm. Like create an avatar in a sense?
Yes, exactly. Drill it down to even if what they wear, because with Facebook ads, you can get down to what they wear, what they read, it's amazing. So then the third one was social media in all its forms. And of course, everyone mostly talks about Instagram.
Oh, I see. Well, especially in the event industry.
Yeah. Just how to use, we were talking about, how to get the strategy, to create a strategy. Mm-hmm. So then what I did on that third week was we did an Instagram challenge, 7-day business challenge, where they were to write about things from a different perspective on their Instagram. And they said they did get more engagement on those posts than they had gotten on any of their other posts, because it's about the voice and the tone of voice and about talking to your people in a different way, conversational like this. Mm-hmm. And rather than we did this. Or,
I think that's huge now. Sure.
Huge. Yes. The tone of voice is important. Can I just do an aside here and say how thrilled I am as a journalism major, as a person that loves writing, as a person that loves the word, that we are now focused on content. I'm there was a time there in my career I thought, what am I going to do? Nobody wants any.
It was just all show.
Nobody
and
wants
surface.
writers. Yeah, and it was all going to video or photos, and I'm like, oh no, maybe I should have been a photo major, like I thought I wanted to be. So now I'm like, oh, I'm so glad to hear these books on writing are out. They're wonderful. I am a firm believer in email, which is I think that was my 4th one, talking about email marketing and how to grow your email list.
Do you mind sitting on that one for a moment? If you could say more about that, because I don't know a ton about this, and I get very mixed messages about email marketing, how effective, not effective. Such a tiny percent even might, from what I hear, opens it, and then a smaller percent actually, digs down deep into it. But you're a proponent of it.
Well, first let me say that anything that works, I'm a proponent of. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. There's just too many hours in the day, unless there's so little hours in the day. The reason why I've come back to email is exactly what I heard at the social media marketing week, is that people, they're my audience. They want to hear from me. So when I set my 5-point content map out, the first one is email, because they're my guys. That's my audience, you know. I want to go talk to them. They want to hear from me. So they get the special treatment first. And then the content that's in that email then gets filtered out through all of my other platforms throughout that week. So that's why I only put it out every other week now, because then that information gets like filtered out. So at the end of it, I've got 3 brand therapy tips. Those will go into Instagram this week. It'll go onto my blog, but not until like a week later, because again, I want my special people to get my email. They get that information first because they've given me their email. Getting someone's email is hard. You have to be willing to give something really good to get it.
Like what? Can you give some examples? That's a tough one.
There's opt-ins. They're called opt-ins. So like say I might give away my content roadmap and say, hey, one of my best opt-ins was how to maximize your content, which is exactly what I'm talking about right now. How do you take... And I did it with Images by Lighting, and I did it with their Shape of Water premiere. And I showed how first we put it out as an email, then we put it out as Facebook. And at the same time, we put it out to the press. So the press does get, number one, right at the same time as your email does. If you've got something good, you send it out to the press. We always forget. All we have to do is just send a little note, you know. BizBash is very good about just like, you just send them a little note, like, this is what I'm doing. Look at this photo. They'll either want it or not. And again, that's like our ego. We're afraid of rejection. Yeah. And we're afraid, the editors won't like it, something. Right. But they need content. That's why I started doing what I do. I needed content as the editor, and I realized nobody was ever sending it to me. So I literally got into their office to get their photos.
Wait, that's so interesting. They weren't giving you content.
Now, don't forget that was when they had to go and get an 8x10 glossy and send it to me, right? So it's now easier with Dropbox and with, they could just drop it to me. So now it's a lot easier to get photos to editors, but I still think people forget that they can do it themselves, that they can just pick 3. That's my brand therapy tip actually for this week was Power of the Press. Pick 3 press that you love, that you can see yourself in, everything about them, continue to send to them in a normal, strategic way. Because I had an epiphany again at social media marketing world that I thought, the way to the press is exactly the way that we're doing for social media. We need to build a relationship, we need to build trust, and we need to let them know that we've got some good content, right? That's what you want to do with your social media audience. So with the press, it's the same thing as our social media, and we have to do it strategically so that we first send out some news releases, just some little feelers. This is what we're doing. We've just moved here, or we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And then you go into your story pitches, and then you go into another pitch, which is called a resource pitch. Okay. You're a good resource for podcast. So you should send out to the press. Whenever you're doing a story on podcasting, I'm your guy.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm here.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I stopped you with the email marketing. There was another pillar after that, I believe.
Yes. The last pillar was re-engineering what you want January 2020 to look like. And then working backwards for all of the things you have to do to get there. And if it's easier to go little by little, you break it into quarters. And you say each quarter, I'm going to do something towards my goal in 2020. Yeah. So that was our last.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I would like to talk about how, connected to brand and messaging it, I always wonder about the difference between how we see ourselves versus how the public sees us, right? And that there seems to be blinders on us. Do you have any suggestions, advice to get around that? How do you do that objectively?
Yes, I did that actually. Not public, I did it with my clients actually, which I guess is public, I suppose. I enrolled in a live coaching plan for myself, for my own company, because I need it just as much. And it's really luxurious for me just to work on my own company. It's kind of nice. It's like,
I'll bet.
It's like going to the spa. Let me just bathe in my own marketing for a moment.
I love that.
Here.
Yeah, really. I forget you're dealing with everyone else.
Otherwise, yes, I'm putting it out there, but we always say we need to work on ourselves so we have something to give back, right? So, and one of the things she said was, okay, now go out to at least 10 clients, past, present, and ask them what they liked about you, what they got from you, how they see you. It was a hard exercise.
Jeez, and why not?
Why
it's
not?
So obvious, and yet.
Make a phone call.
That's great. Okay,
right?
So keep going. I got excited. Go ahead.
No. I know. It was one of my brand therapy tips, get on the phone, call your clients. Don't forget that they see you more than anything. And, obviously exit polls, when you're done with an event, how your clients saw you, what they loved, what they didn't, that's fairly standard. But I think that talking to our old clients, but I don't know how we can, unless there's, big brands do polls and they do all of that thing. And this market is smaller than that. They're not going to do polling and things. But I do believe that's how the big brands will find out more about what people see about them. And interesting tidbit, the large brands are having a real big difficulty with people. The harder, this was from McKinsey reports, Deloitte, and Accenture, all did studies on how the public is seeing the efforts of brands right now. The efforts of a brand to reach their market. Oh. So they said the more these people try to create and build loyalty, the less the public trusts them. That gets gasps from the audiences that when I've heard people speak on this. So that just freaks brands out because they're trying to find the loyalty. But I think it goes back to the soap analogy. When you're trying too hard, you can't just be like, buy our soap because it's good and we've done lots of studies on that we don't, harm the environment or blah, blah, blah. Then you've got this little guy at the farmer's market that's there going like, we make our soap with soy, and it's all tofu and, we crack open whatever they do. Yeah. We grind it. We put the paraffin in. It's why I love these candles from Tennessee. This girl and her dog are just the most adorable thing on Instagram. She makes all of her candles right there in Tennessee from soy. They're all named after something beautiful, like grateful, beautiful. All these things that you want to
connects. Yeah.
Yes. And then I give them out to people because you go like, I am grateful for you. And
that's wow.
Her whole company is called Full Candles, F-U-L Candles.
Oh.
It was brilliant.
That really is.
And it's so simple.
Yeah. Is there anything you notice as a commonality that event businesses are not capitalizing on but should be?
Well, I just want to always say the latest of social media. They get there in time, but they don't start right away. So I think being early adopter of anything is always good. Like I say to them, like, all right, I'm telling you this now, and they'll be like, what? Be like, okay, mark my words next year. And actually, Gary Vaynerchuk says that all the time. He goes, just keep being the voice of like what the future is. And then someone will finally turn around and go like, oh yeah, you told me that. Yeah, now we want to do that. It takes a while for all of us as business owners to adopt things because we feel like what we're doing is fine. And I think that's what happens when businesses stay in business too long, like the Ivory soap again. What they're doing isn't fine. Why can't Ivory soap go out and create farmers market soap? Mm-hmm. Of course they could. Yeah. But it's small, it's too much work, But it's funny because they started at some point with some sort of passion, and then along the way they lost it. So,
well, what else can we do on our own? Generally, speaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've given us a lot here, but that's what's so hard. What can we do just on our own?
Where do you think the hole is in people's marketing, like even yourself and stuff? Is the hole that they want more clients, or is the hole that they want more recognition? And is the hole, do they want more relevance? So it depends on what they want. And I think for the most part, people want to stay relevant through all the
in these interviews, I hear that a lot, that word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do too. When I talk to my clients, they said, you kept me relevant. That's what I liked about working with you. So, okay. So what happens then when I'm not there with them? Do they stay relevant or do they forget to go and do the work? So, I think, and this is why in a way, I think that social media is one of those things now that people are bringing into their companies, and they are then hiring someone that's in-house that then can actually do things in real time, show someone working we're going to do an installation tonight. Let me get out there with my camera. And so I think that in another way is why just somebody that's just doing social media for companies might be the next travel agent. They might be going the way of a company that won't be sustainable as companies start to bring it in. Yeah. So I see that as a possibility too out there.
Also with all of this, in terms of finding our voice, and we talked about this before the record button was hit, do you have some tips that you can give someone to get their voice via the web and help them find their target customers?
Yes, I do. Again, it's finding your ideal client and figuring out who they are, and then while you are writing to them, picturing them. while you write every post, picture that person. You only need to speak to one person. So I always, while I'm typing out my little post, I'm smiling. I literally am smiling. I don't know why. I just love talking to whoever that person is. And I'm smiling. I'm going like, hey, friend, this is for you. You know, we just did this amazing event and we think you're going to love this. You know, this is what you're waiting for. And we're going to do a series of 3 on this, and you're going to like really learn what it was like to do this fashion show, or what it was like to be working on the lighting behind the scenes. When we talk to our people like that, we get more engagement because they feel like we're talking one-on-one to them. And so I just think the tone, I mean, there are definitely some rules, I guess, of writing. I'm trying to think of what they are right now, but I really think the overarching one is to picture that person.
I like, Liese, how you were talking about, and smile.
Yes,
I mean, it comes out.
That's an old phone trick. That's an old smiling and dialing,
actually,
right?
In the vocal world, too. Yeah, if you smile when you sing, it brings up, it really does. Also, just a few more questions. Coming back to when you were editor, I know it was a while ago, but in terms of what we should know about how to get coverage.
How to get coverage,
is it really even that important, based on conversation we had earlier?
Okay, so first, why it may be important is that it gives you really great like street credibility, right? Mm-hmm. So you're getting third-party testimonial from an editor who has said, I deem this person worthy of my space, because a column inch in a newspaper is worth a lot of money now, and they've got a lot of people vying for that little column inch. So you've got to figure, if they do a story on you, and so do your friends figure this, and anybody else who's looking at it says, wow, they are worth something, whether or not it's true or not, and whether or not they've got a really amazing press person they've paid a lot of money to, that's something other. But if you want to get press yourself, my 3 little things that I said, I'm going to go in 3s today, would be to find the publications that you want to be in, start to contact them, start to like dig deep, dive deep.
And who?
And be obsessed.
There's a title, I suppose, of who generally?
Yeah. So get to know the masthead, actually get to know the reporters. I like to go to the reporters first, because the editors may or may not be the ones assigning stories, but reporters will take your story into the editor, and they're already a known source.
Well, they're your advocate then.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
So they're already a known source. So I work with, I'll just send out little things to reporters like, this is interesting, you might like this, or blah, 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 and not worry about the outcome. So it's pretty zen. You've really got to get zen on press, because we all think our stories are great. And they are. They're really good. But there's so little space out there for them. There's just not enough space. And again, that's why I say let's be our own media. And if what we're doing is really interesting, the media will actually find us too. So if they're looking, they go deep dive on Instagram all the time to find people. Because I do go to seminars where there are editors speaking about that too. And they're using it as a way to find, just the fresh stories that are out there that may not, just like I was at the editor of special events, people not reaching out to me. And then I'll be talking to them at a convention. And I'll be like, oh, here you are. Why did you not send me this?
Yeah.
And they'll go, oh my God, we did this amazing event with like 14-foot sunflowers and, and I'll be like, why didn't I see a photo? Well, then that was before, social media. So now the editors can see those flowers, and they can see your life. That's why it is important to put it all together in a nice strategy, a nice little bundle that even your audience can understand. Like when they look at your feed, they understand who you are.
Yeah. It
might take a while to get there, but...
Well, also, I'm thinking in terms of people who want to hire someone like yourself, a marketing and PR consultant, what should people know in order to find, and hire the right one for them?
Well, I think the way that people come to me is certainly, again, I'm going to go back to the people issue, and that it's relationship building. So you'd have to say, are they at the same events as I am? Are they walking the same walk as me? There are some people who charge a lot of money, and people don't get anything from it. I hear this all the time, and it sours them on this experience. And then there are people who are, I guess, are afraid of it as an extra cost. I don't know. I mean, you kind of said it best, like your time is better spent than, by hiring an editor than editing the podcast yourself, right? So
that's right.
Sometimes your time is just better spent. So I still say my market is people who have been in their business for between 5 and 10 years already, have done some really nice work, have built all of their solid foundation, and are now ready for recognition. It's now when they're like, God, my competitor just got that piece of media. Right. How did that happen? And I think that I hired that person, you know? And so then they're like, oh no, how did they get it when I trained them? So I think that's when they usually come to me going like, oh gosh, we're losing our relevancy because the younger ones are just kind of fearless with going out there to the press. And I think we talked about, you asked me, is the press even relevant? And like I said, for street credibility, I am not sure how much business you get out of it. But then again, if you've got your email set up, you've got your blog set up,
yeah,
you've got your
I guess
Instagram
put
set
all
up,
together, it's a portfolio.
You
but
put it
not
all
to
out
expect
there.
the world to change.
Right.
Necessarily if you get covered in a magazine.
The world won't change, but you can certainly put it out everywhere, and you can put it on your, I put it on my bio, Instagram bio, as seen in blah, blah, blah. Or
well, and also I'm thinking, in general with all of our businesses, we don't necessarily, we'll ask in my music company, how did you find us? And some people don't really know exactly because, they've heard us in many different places. People mention, it's just kind of this whole, amalgamation of information and how they hear about us. So right. I get that too. And, as we get ready to wrap up, so Liese, you've given so much valuable information here. I'm wondering, what is maybe one thing that you think of every day?
Well, the one thing I think about every day is that one scene in Lion King where Mufasa, the father, and Simba, the little lion king, are sitting on a mesa, and they are overlooking this massive land, and the sun is setting on it. And Mufasa says to his son that our land is everything that the sun sets on. And so I was at a conference, and I heard this woman use that as, son, everything that the sun is setting on is content. It is all content. So I like to tell my brand therapy group and my clients and stuff, everything is content. So these days you do something, it's interesting, it's content. Use it because your people are following you and you've got your, as we call them, raving fans.
Raving fans,
They
right.
want to know what you're doing.
That's
it's
right.
content.
Yeah.
So,
well, this has been great, Liese. So what is the best way for people to find out about you, your company, and to reach you?
They can find me on Instagram at Liese Gardner, Liese Gardner, Gardner. Find me. My website is also liesegardner.com. My Facebook is Liese Gardner. You're seeing a theme here, I take it.
Well, good branding.
Yeah, and then I think that's it. I mean, everything, Twitter is the same thing, and
so everything's Liese Gardner.
Everything is just Liese Gardner.
And again, that's Liese Gardner. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have all of this in the show notes on the website, so you could find it there. So, wow, Liese, again, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for talking with me.
Thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to see how it all comes out.
It's going to come out great. Trust me. This was great.
It'll be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to my interview of Liese Gardner. Be sure to check out her site at liesegardner.com. That's Liese Gardner, Gardner.com. You can also go to theweddingbiz.com and the show notes where we have all this listed. Her social media handles are at Liese Gardner. And also, please share this episode with friends and colleagues. It helps people to find us, and especially when you give a really good review wherever you get your podcast from. And be sure to subscribe. And I want to thank our sponsors, OFD Consulting and Kushner Entertainment. And we'll catch you all next week.